Trump's assault on democracy just isn't part of his past. It's what he's promising to do with the future. The difference, though, is from 2022, number one, Trump and Biden are both now on the ballots rather than not, number one. And number two, and I think this may be where your argument falls apart here, is that people have lived under Donald Trump. There's a lot of people who remember 2017 to 2021. The pandemic was not Trump's fault. But from 2017 to 2020, January 2020, people thought there were pretty good times in America, and Donald Trump did not become a dictator.
So let's remember job creation, take it. Under Donald Trump, 1.5 million fewer jobs were created in the first 3 years of his presidency than the last 3 years of Obama's. The reason people thought it was good is because Trump kept saying, this is the best economy of all time. We have the Wall Street Journal, no friend of Biden, saying the U.S. economy today is the envy of the world. So I think Democrats are perfectly happy to have this economic argument.
Please don't tell me you're trying to tell me that Democrats win on the question of who do you trust more to help you, Mr. Voter, Mr. Working Class American, that they trust Joe Biden more than they trust Donald Trump.
I'll tell you what I think. If you ask people, how is your personal economy? They say it's pretty good. How's your community's economy? Pretty good. How's the national economy? Oh, it sucks, right? And the fact is, stock market's at an all-time high. We have job creation, crazy high numbers, 15 million.
Well, look, find me some poll, fine, that says my personal economy's fine. You've got, what, 50% of people making under $100,000 a year living paycheck to paycheck. Top issues for swing state voters: inflation, 49%, immigration, 30%. Political extremism goes to Biden, 24%, maybe. Crime and gun violence, that goes to Donald Trump. Healthcare, housing cost availability, 18%. 4 of those issues, Donald Trump wins on the issue by multiple points. My question is, don't Democrats need something other than Donald Trump is going to send mean tweets to run on?
Yeah, it has nothing to do with mean tweets. When he says he wants to be a dictator, you know.
Oh, come on.
Well, no, okay, you can dismiss it, but look, let me say something you can't dismiss. That he cozies up readily to dictators, Putin, Kim Jong-il, Hungary, you name it. The list goes on and on and on. And there's something about his makeup. He wants to withdraw the U.S. from the world, give power to these people. That, I think, in a lot of people, in American voters, doesn't sit too well. Call it what you want.
I know. I hear that argument. And look, there was a lot of things that Donald Trump did during his first term that we covered pretty aggressively, or at least I did. But you think about what you just brought up. Vladimir Putin didn't invade Ukraine when Donald Trump was president. Kim Jong-un wasn't firing missiles off and was not cozying up to Vladimir Putin. He wasn't. And he ended his nuclear testing under Donald Trump. Again, I get the idea. Make this a referendum on Donald Trump from the Biden campaign. Isn't that a danger that some people are going to go, well, back then things were okay?
Well, again, we were in a war under Trump, right, in Afghanistan. The U.S. is itself not in any wars today. Do we have, areas of the world where we are heavily involved? Of course. But under Trump, Trump says to NATO, unless you pay up, Russia should bomb the hell out of you. Okay? That's not a very healthy position, whereas, and people remember at the G7 meeting, famously, the leaders laughed at Trump behind his back. Biden is held in high regard. He's the one who's pulled together the coalition against Trump. He's the one who's, frankly, helped things not blow up horribly even further in the Middle East. So, yes, I actually think that American voters want what Biden has offered rather than what they remember and what Trump himself is very open saying about what he's going to do. The tariffs, which will be inflationary.
Joe Biden talked about tariffs, too. Come on.
No. Trump is talking about putting tariffs across the board in a way.
But come on, Richard. I'm old enough to remember in 2016, everyone was talking about how tariffs were going to cripple the American economy, and now you have Joe Biden actually enhancing the Trump tariffs. Come on.
Just in China, I think, is the only place. So, look, the fact of the matter is Trump's talking about tax cuts, again, for corporations and the very wealthy. Biden's talking about caring for the middle class. It's actually a pretty simple contrast, and we'll see which way it cuts.
Yeah, speaking of taxes, there's one Democratic senator talking about tax Armageddon coming in 2025. We're going to deal with that tomorrow.
Yeah, okay.
It's good to see you, my friend.
See you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven
unbiased coverage.